What's up guys, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, let's talk about Romancing Festival Anya banner in a full review. Well, this banner here has again a discount if you are using paid gens. You will not see off banners, you have 1.25% chance of getting the banner units, but to be honest, this is not a big increase. If you want to use free gens on this banner, it's actually pretty okay. Now let's start talking about Anya. She has a hybrid design because she can use rapiers and spells. So dexterity is 105, but it's not her focus. Intelligence is 119 because she can debuff and use spells. Alongside 101% agility, she's gonna be fast and have good accuracy. Her will is 82%, that's not bad. Endurance is very bad actually, with 55%. At least she does have some layers of defense that will help her survive. She still has very good love because she can heal the party with an AoE spell. Now, for passive we have Action Switch. Yes, we saw this too many times. It's a very strong passive for boss fights, carrying 4 different effects. When she uses Pierce attacks, she grants herself an attack boost that increases damage by 10%, can stack 3 turns, and she also recovers BP by 2. Then, when attacking with Sun attacks, she grants herself a defense boost, decreasing damage taken by 15%, lasts for 3 turns and stacks, and also recovers HP by very small effect that should be close to 250 with her current status. Well, attack boost will reach 30%, but in all reality it only affects 20% since you only get the effect after the attacks. And the defense boost is different because if you attack before the enemy, you see the full potential that will decrease on the average of minus 40% of the damage by turn 3. And then she has passive number 2, that she buffs her intelligence by 20% on the start of a turn. She can actually do some damage when using the right skills. She also grants herself a heat up effect that will increase her damage output by 20% for the whole fight when she performs a recovery action. We'll be discussing this later. Then we have Dauntless Resolve. When all allies are still alive, she will increase her damage output by 30%, and if she gets attacked by an attack that will cause resist, damage taken will be reduced by 40%. This is the same value as you get from Intrinsic, that also decreases damage taken by 40%. But you are getting 30% increase in damage potential instead of 20, and you are getting 1 BP by the end of a turn instead of having that evasion chance that Intrinsic has. I kinda like this because it allows her to reach 6 BP per turn, and it's something that she will benefit a lot when seeing her inheritance option. Now let's check her skills, with the first one being Shining Pierce. This is a free skill that can debuff intelligence by 15% on max level, and it carries pierce and sun damage. It means that she will trigger all the effects from her action switch for free. Very nice. Damage is very similar to a normal attack. Then the second skill is called Starlight Grace. For 5 BP when fully awakened, you can full AoE heal the party and cast Guard Up Medium. The power of the spell is D, so that means that you will be getting around 1,800 healing with a fully promoted character, and the Guard Up Medium decreases damage taken for 25%, lasting for 2 turns. Well, this is just like Ring of Life was in the past, being capable of reviving, while now applying an additional effect. The good fact is just that you don't lose LP when casting Starlight Grace, and when you use it, you will also increase her damage output by 20%. You can use it 2 times, that guarantees 40%, and in some fights you just wanna use it anyway. If you are using her alongside Mirza, you can focus Mirza on using left fork instead of his Steel Blade Light, because he can eventually heal, and when he does not, get your Anya and use Starlight Grace for the moments where you need to heal. The last skill is Quattro Luminaire. That is actually a spell, and it will be based on her intelligence. A triple S attack that also does sun and pierce damage. It means that it will trigger all the 4 effects from action switch. It will apply attack down, decreasing damage by 15% from one enemy, and then defense down. That will decrease the defense of the enemy by 15%. So defense down usually increase your damage by the average of 5%. Attack down translates into minus 15%. It's multiplicative with all the other defense supports in the game, but it's interesting because it stacks with everything else. Attack down can even stack with another source of attack down. Because 2 effects lasts for 2 turns, you can actually have a perfect cycle when using Anya. She gets 6 BP per turn, you can use a 4 Luminaire by turn 1, and then after that, you will just use skill 1. Keep all of your action switches active, and just get the attack down active at all time. But she can actually do some different rotations as well. But in order to find a second rotation, you need her first style, because you need a Toyodor. This is a single target attack with 8 power, damage is not important, it costs 6 BP, so she can also use this every turn. It has Sun and Pierce damage, just like the other skill, and it applies attack down, but this time it only lasts for 1 turn, so you need to keep recasting. It also removes all buffs applied by the enemy. Some bosses will just self-buff when you hit them, those are the most dangerous because the more you hit, the stronger they get. Some others will buff themselves when they hit you, and if they do multiple attacks, they will also become dangerous. So sometimes you want buff breaks, but we do have alternatives. There are other characters with access to this type of stuff, especially people like Rock Bouquet with Dark Wash that she can inherit from her S style. There is also other people like Rouge that has it with Dark Wash as well. He's also a very popular character that get it from his S style. There is other characters like Spell Girl. That is a very powerful one if you already have. There is also Urpina that gets it from this other skill called Rising Nova Plus, something that you also find in characters like Acelus. There are plenty of different options that can buff break. So in the end, there's lots of different options for buff break. The good thing is that Anya can do it every single turn, but the best version of Anya can do it herself, right? Do you need to upgrade? To be honest, maybe not. She gets lots of BP by her own passives, and if you are using BP batteries, she can still perform on a very similar level. This Anya is more of an upgrade to receive less damage on boss fights while doing more damage and having access to an AoE heal, like I said, that synergizes well when using the latest version of Mirza, so that he can become a full damage dealer, and when he fails to heal, you can use someone like Anya or other character to give that needed heal. Now, if you do not have the premium version of Anya, in her S style from Story, you have access to Starlight Heal. The good thing is that when she heals, she gets 20% damage increase. That means that you can get the same value from Starlight Heal. But, well, it's a single target spell, that means that depending on the fights, you will not actually get a big usage of it, and you can just decide to heal even through you don't need just to buff her heat up. So together with at least 20% from attack boost and another 30% from her third passive, we will have 190% damage increase. Together with many intelligence buffs, damage is respectable, but again, nukers do much more damage than Anya. Even if you consider all of this, and you still require 7 turns to heal so many times, and what are you doing? You are not using what really matters. But all in all, Anya offers good support. It's not really a requirement, and just helps out when you're fighting versus bosses that likes to buff. She received a triple S grade by having access to good support and good sustain. Well, Anya has 2 future styles. The next one is more focused on doing damage and applying buffs passively, but only 5%. She has a very strong attack that has 5 hits, and it's just like left fork, but there's no buff here. Maybe they will release a version that buffs dexterity and intelligence on hit. Who knows, but quote me when it happens. Then there is a future version of Anya, Summer style, that has more effects like defense boost. She can also give heat up to all allies instead of just herself, and gives defense boost passively as well. Alongside a second type of action switch that works for everyone, not just the character. So it's a character that will be released probably around 8 months from now or something, but just means that Anya has a very good future. The next character is Liam, and they buffed Liam to become much better. 121% dexterity allows him to do very good damage, and he has 105% agility. He is pretty fast. But he does have low endurance. Well, like all of his versions, it's always close to 70%, but they buffed his will to reach 90%, now being the highest of all his versions. He still has enough intelligence to debuff some enemies with anti-material shot by inheritance. Now talking about his passives, he starts the fight with 12 BP, and on the end of a turn, if no damage is taken, he will just recover 3 BP. That's very nice for his farming potential because he does not take damage, but also for his bossing gameplay that I'll have to explain later. The second passive, called Frozen Munitions, damage increases by 30% at all times. He loses 2 LP but will negate all damage by 1 turn, can still be inflicted with ailments, and guarantee 2 Frozen Chasers active. What is Frozen Chaser? It's the same effect that you get when you use Frozen Revolver, that has a deep power attack when attacking single targets, that has blunt and cold damage, and recovers 1 BP, and has 25% chance to grant himself a damage block that will negate all damage 1 time. There's no turn limit on this. So, Frozen Revolver is exactly like Wind Revolver, save for the damage block part and the change of elements. Wind Revolver deals blunt and slash damage. Frozen Revolver deals blunt and cold damage. So it's a different element, and now it has an additional effect of that damage block. It means that now this bullet is the best one for blunt damage than Wind Revolver. Now, the third passive is called Gun Finesse. When attacking with guns, damage increases by another 30%, and when attacked, damage taken will be reduced by 30. So he does have 1 damage reduction passive, all Lians have at least 1, and 60% damage increase at all times as well, while also having this gimmick. Let's talk about Frozen Revolver. You can use this skill on turn 1, for example. Now he starts the fight with 2 chases active already. So after you use Frozen Revolver 3 times, by turn 4 you will still have 10 BP. That means that you can already nuke with Liam by turn 4 with a skill called Acrobatic Grace. This is a fast attack with blunt and cold damage that after he deals damage, he will grant himself an attack boost that increases damage by 30% and lasts for 1 turn. This is just to increase the damage potential of his chase attacks. That's right. By this point, he has 5 chases, so the damage will increase. Well, the first hit is not as strong as his second style that has a skill with, well, 15 BP. That's too much, right? But it compensates by increasing the damage of the follow-up attacks. And by being ready on turn 4, it's much faster than the first Liam, because he was only ready on turn 5, and on turn 5 he did not have enough BP to nuke unless you give him BP by other sources. Because now, by turn 4, after 5 chases, you have an average of getting at least 1 damage block. When you get it, if a boss only attacks you once, you will block the damage and get 3 extra BP by the end of a turn. And what's good about this is that if you are lucky enough, you can get multiple damage blocks stacked. So if you get 3 triggers, it means that you will not take damage for the next 3 attacks. And since he attacks multiple times, if he's not targeted in some turns, he will get lots of BP and just stack even more damage blocks. That's very interesting because your nuker now can be self-protected. So if you have the first version of Liam, it's good to inherit anti-material shot so that you always have BP to nuke. And this one carries the endurance debuff, but it's just blunt damage. So depending, you may just want to use normal attack and save BP to just use the cold damage again if the enemy is only weak to cold. Some could say that you could inherit full power shot from his second style, but I don't think it matters, because in the end, you are doing higher damage on the front hit and doing less damage with the chase attacks because you are losing that attack boost. Now, one thing to say, as Liam has cold damage with this attack that comes from Ice Revolver, well, Ice Chaser is much weaker. Not only it has only E power, it tries to apply Guard Down, and Guard Down will increase your damage, but by very small difference, and you cannot stack, so you also don't get extra BP. That means that this Liam was never a really good cold damage dealer, especially because it didn't have a strong opener, and you should just consider the new Revolver a much better upgrade. But now, how well Liam fares when compared to UDX Silver? Well, UDX Silver can start doing damage by turn 2 after using Dragon Force. She has 2 damage reduction passives, it's a little more tankier, and she can either perform as a blunt damage dealer with follow-ups that are cold and lightning, or as a main cold damage dealer. And well, she has similar design. She will increase her damage so that the chase damage is increased. In the case of Silver, the Morale Up is cast before she lands her hit, so her opener is stronger. Her chases are stronger as well, but since she is limited to just 2 chases and Liam can reach 5 chases, well, Liam beats Silver as soon as we break through turn 6 or 7, and they would do similar damage by turn 6. So Silver gains by having more tankiness, Liam gains by having bigger damage output on the long run. If you have Silver, you're still good to go because she can still dominate boss fights, but they are used with different buffers. If you want to use Liam, you have to go back to Matriarch, because Matriarch will buff Dexterity with Pian of Peace. It will also buff Will. It's used in many fights. This is not a bad buff, it's still very nice. It also buffs Love and Charisma so that your heals are very strong. You can use this with any other healer like Polka, like Nirza, like Katarina. This won't increase their damage, besides Katarina, but will increase their healing effects and will still keep your will buffs active. Or you can just leave Matriarch alone and use different buffers, but they will not buff Dexterity every turn. Those will be Witch's Daughter. She's a very good buffer that also gives BP to people. And then we have 40% buffs on Overdrive and 25% buffs when not on Overdrive, but she usually buffs every 2 turns. And then there is also Maria, that buffs all status, but in between 2 turns with her Golden Dragon Dance. The damage may not be as high as when using Matriarch, but she buffs all status. It will protect you better as well. With the difference that Maria carries is Cruel Guard, so sometimes you are trading off less offense for better defense. But you can use any, just depends on the situation. You can even use both together if you so desire. Now, before we go back, just one thing to remember. The first Liam only had 40% damage increase when attacking weak targets. The second Liam had 50%, and the next Liam has 60, so they are just scaling a little by little. But the Dexterity isn't scaling well, with the first style having 112, the second style having 115, and now the third one having 121%. Now, going back to the skills, we haven't talked about the second one yet, because Liam only cares about first and third when going for a boss fight, but he still has Gunner Assault. This is a very powerful AoE attack that has B power, but 27 mod. That's just one mod away from being A power. And remember that gun attacks are very powerful because of the damage calculation being different. He can also use Gunner Assault 3 times in a row when using the Magia Fight formation or Bullet Shift, and he will easily solo story stages. He may still solo some events, but that's not so easy to happen. So Liam works well, especially on story. When talking about farming situations, there is also something interesting. Now that Liam has 2 chases right on turn 1. When you start the fight with 12, you can use Acrobatic Grace, and then you get 2 extra BP with the chase attacks, recovering a total of 8 if you land both chase attacks. Sometimes an enemy may just die. So if you can land all 2 chases by the turn 2, you'll be able to use Acrobatic Grace again. Remember that this is a fast attack, so this will be useful to maybe solo some boss fights in events that have 2 bosses, one in wave 1, another in wave 2, or just use it on story farming when there's only one enemy. But in that situation, it will be better when attacking enemies weak versus blunt, so that you can inherit anti-material shot, and even if you don't chase, you always have enough BP to use anti-material shot. So he will also work well when farming single targets. His turn 1 damage will be even higher than Silver's, may reach the same potential as Rolfa's and as Saruin's immortality by turn 1. And it will be very similar as, well, Arthur's left fork on turn 1 as well. Okay, so in the end, Liam is a powerhouse, becoming much faster by being ready on turn 4, and also being capable of soloing some stages either with single target or AoE damage. A full package that will stay relevant for the foreseeable future, and will receive an OP grade in our tier list. But you can still skip if you decide to and wanna use your silver or wanna use the inferior bullets with the first Liam. You may take some resets, but you can still clear content. Liam has 2 future styles. The next one is very different. He has this chase anti-material shot that needs 17 BP to use because there's no LP penalty. That means that Liam will now be able to chase 6 times after he uses this skill. It takes times, but he just has lots of BP on the first 3 turns of a fight. After using Convert Weapon, he will still need to load Wind Chaser or Frozen Chaser, so that he will be able to do many chase attacks. So there's lots of preparation, but eventually he will just open with Armored Cannon, an attack that gives himself guard up, and then he chases with the 5 Frozen Chasers or Wind Chaser plus anti-material shot. Damage is insane, very nice. But then the next version, that's probably 8 months away, has Summer Liam now with an insane passive that starts the fight with Wind Chaser, Frozen Chaser, Ice Chaser, Anti-Material Shot, and Attack Chaser, all of his chase mechanics, even the one from his S style, and only cuts 3 LP. But this only lasts for 10 turns. It means that eventually he just will not be able to chase with his passives anymore, but he still has 2 LP to chase even 2 other times. So this is a crazy version of Liam that just breaks the game kinda for farming and for boss fights, but very far in the future. The next one is Final Emperor, and he has very good status distribution, starting with 120% STR, 93% endurance, 92% will for good resistance versus physical and magical, still 104% agility with a character that is also a counter. It's not common. Then still has a little intelligence for some inheritances, and low love and charisma, because he needed to take a hit somewhere, right? Now for passes, we start the fight with 12 BP, and when landing a weak attack, he will recover 2 BP. That's super important, and it's what makes him good or not. The second one, Imperial Trust, gives him a damage block for 1 time every new turn. The first hit will be negated, and then he will use Defense Up. That will boost his defenses by 15% for the whole fight, and this can stack 5 times per battle. And by the start of turn 5, he will have 5 stacks. That means minus 56% damage just from all defense ups. So he has a slow start, but eventually he becomes super defensive, and he also recovers 1 BP on the start of a turn. Then 30% damage increase at all times, and another 20% when landing weak attacks. So all in all, he starts with 12, can get 6 BP per turn when attacking with targets, has minus 56% by turn 5, and 50% damage increase. Okay, so let's see his attack animations. The first one is Taunt Stance. This is a full AoE attack with pierce and slash damage that carries taunts. You can stack many taunts as you want, it will just increase the chances of being attacked. It's an amazing skill for free. The second one is called Dreamy Light. This is a triple S attack with a Sun and Pierce. It carries a self-healing that will recover around 1.4 thousand HP when using the skill. So you could just theoretically use him as a taunter and then just self-healing, right? But to be honest, his main gameplay is to use Rising Dragon. This is a 12 VP attack that carries pierce and slash damage that is fast. And then after the damage, he enters an evasive counter stance. And if he is directly attacked, he will evade the attack and counter with Swooping Dragon Plus. This is a 4S attack that will also recover his HP by around 1.2 thousand. Now, we start to think about how to effectively use him. If you are attacking enemies that are weak to Pierce, that's when he's mainly gonna be used. You're gonna get that triple S attack that will allow him to get 2 extra BP. Then, if the enemy attacks him, he's also getting 2 extra BP. If he is attacked twice after attacking with the Rising Dragon, you recovered 6 BP, right? By the end of a turn, you also recover 3. And you have 1 extra by start of a turn. That means that in this turn he recovered 10. See, exactly a lot of BP. If you counter 3 times, then you get 12. Enough to allow you to just use Rising Dragon again. If you have more than 1 enemy, it's much likely that he may counter 3 times. If there's just 1 enemy, then sometimes he will not counter because enemies sometimes have indirect attacks. So when you don't have enough BP, you will use Taunt Stance to just increase the chances of being attacked. It's actually a very nice kit that deals insane amounts of damage, but it's more about Pierce than anything else. You could just use him for Sun and Dreamy Light, but, well, the damage is not that great to compensate. He's not a real nuker, but he is a nuker that can be the only damage dealer in a fight with Swooping Dragon Plus versus enemies that are weak to Pierce. Well, as for the competition, we have some counter attackers. The last one was Shaw. He has inheritance from Windmill that I don't have, that comes from his tower style. And he also gets BP when landing weak attacks. So they have similar design, but Fire Emperor will do more damage and self-heal. Besides Shroud, there is also the latest version of Fornews that deals very good amount of damage with his latest style, and he also generates well and evades enemies' attacks when they are indirect. And there is also Laura. Well, Laura will get the future style, and there's also her UDX one that can counter by inheritance of Windmill. That is a double S attack. They are not as strong as this Final Emperor, but they may get the job done. And not a single boss stage is just designed to be all about counter. You will always be able to win with different strategies. Counter characters are just fun to have, but not mandatory. Well, Final Emperor has some nice inheritances because he has access to Greatsword and Spear attacks. First, in his Valentine style, they just added an Amplify for Brilliant Slash that is now Slash and some triple S damage for roll. 10 BP cost only, so you can use it on turn 1 and on turn 3. For turn 1 damage, if you have the Termite version, you can just use Double Dark Blade on turn 1. Well, it's very big damage on turn 1 if we are on an event where there's only 1 enemy. Then we have Holy Light, that is a full AoE attack with the power that heals everyone HP by very small. That should be around 180 because his love is very bad. I don't think it's good, to be honest. From his musical style, there is Melody of Light that buffs his STR for free, but you lose Taunt, so it's also not really a good option. And Howling Impact is just too costly, and he loses his main gameplay, that is to counter enemies. So in the end, Final Emperor is a strong character, but he's limited into one role of being a strong counter attacker versus enemies that are weak to Pierce. If they are not, well, you're not going to take full advantage of the character. Hence why he's going to take an SS Plus grade, but it's nothing mandatory and easy to skip. The last character is Nebelstern, and he was designed for farming. 121 STR and 113 agility already screams that. He has okay endurance and will, but you should not care too much about these values, because he's all about the damage. The first passive gives him 30% increase at all times, and then he gets an attack boost that increases by 50% for one turn only, on the start of a round. So turn 2 you don't have anything unless you switch between waves. Then the second passive gives him 30% at all times and starts the fight with 12 BP. The third one gives another 30% and an extra 15 when landing weak attacks. So he has 155% damage increase when switching between waves. Then by turn 2 he will have only 105%, and if not landing weak attacks he has 90%. Let's go and check his skills. The first one is called the Heavy Pike. That is a single target attack with B power pierce damage only, and it will recover his HP by around 1000. So he does not have damage reduction passives, but he can self-heal. But if the enemy uses nuke attacks, he may just die before he can self-heal. The second skill is Scattered Current. This is a full AoE attack with pierce and slash damage and has only C power. So the damage is not that great, but it's boosted by 155% when farming. That means that he can solo story stages, but he won't be able to solo events. That means that the usage is pretty limited. Then the last attack is called the Crystal Strike. This is a triple S attack with pierce and cold damage that hits a row of enemies. So it's strong, but he cannot even use this on turn 1 and on turn 3. He can only open with this. So what does he do after using Crystal Strike? A single target attack that kinda breaks his cycle. So he was designed to use skill 2 only all the time and just for story farming. Now for inheritance, if you have his S style, you can use Big Wheels Plus on turn 1. With S power, this is gonna be very strong. So in events where you have to kill minions on wave 1 and then attack a boss on wave 2, he can open, kill the minions, and then use his skill number 1 to do some damage versus the boss, but then someone else will have to do the job. And there is also his Heavenly Strike. That is a triple S attack that gives morale up medium, increasing damage by 25% for 3 turns. And then he's going to use either a normal attack or self-heal to try to get back to use Heavenly Strike, but well, he's just a 3 BP per turn character. He barely does that. So some can use him for Remembrance just because Matriarch is there buffing status to allow Nebelstern to survive, but he's not really good on doing it. So on the end of it, Nebelstern is a very limited character with a strange rotation, and we'll be giving him only an SS- grade by being locked into farming on story mode and some very specific challenges. A very easy to skip character and the worst of the banner. Now going back to the banner image, is this banner worth summoning for? Well, yes, I will be giving this a gold minus award, but you can still skip if you want, because, well, if you already have UDX Silver, you will cover cold damage, but she uses different buffers. If you need to buff Will, Liam works well, because you can use Matriarch, but you don't need both. You can clear content with one of them just fine. And for blunt damage, you can still use the first Liam if you want, or the second one. Anya is good. It's even better if you have the first style, because you can just have a character that can buff break a boss every turn. But there are alternatives as well, but she's just good. Then Final Emperor is really strong when he can actually use his kit, but that's just very limited. That's why he doesn't add too much. Nebelstern is just a farmer with a very low utility outside of it. So if you want to pull here, get Liam and drop it if you don't care too much about Anya, but you can still get Anya if you are close for a pity or if she drops on the way. You can skip both Final Emperor and Nebelstern without feeling anything, because you can get other replacements for Final Emperor and Nebelstern. Is totally easy to forget. With all that said, this is my opinion. What is yours? Please see here in the comment section. I'm planning on pulling because of Liam, because I believe many people will have him as well, and I want to showcase how different he is to his alternate styles. But people can skip by having access to his old style that still works pretty fine. If you are a newcomer, I recommend pulling here because this Liam just kind of replaces the old one, and even if you need to do neutral damage, he is just a good damage dealer anyway. So this is my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you soon in the next video or next live stream. Bye.